The champagne glass in my hand cost more than my first car. I knew this because Preston, my husband's cousin, had just announced it to the entire table, right before he asked me what I did for a living, as if he didn't already know the answer he wanted to hear. The ballroom sparkled like someone had stolen every star from the sky and trapped them in crystal chandeliers. Women dripped in diamonds that could have paid off student loans for entire universities. Men wore watches worth more than houses. And somewhere in this sea of designer gowns and custom tuxedos, my husband Ethan was being crowned the new CEO of Bennett Capital Holdings, his family's billion-dollar empire. I should have been proud. I was proud. But pride gets complicated when you're surrounded by people who think your middle-class background is something to whisper about at brunch. "So, Amelia," Preston said, leaning back in his chair with that grin rich people perfect in private schools, "what exactly do you do these days? Still playing around with those cute little financial models?" The table erupted. Actual laughter. Like I'd told a joke instead of being made into one. I smiled. Took a sip of that overpriced champagne. Let the bubbles dance on my tongue while I decided whether tonight was the night I'd stop pretending to be small. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. My mother-in-law Lydia, because of course her name was Lydia, dabbed her lips with a napkin that probably cost $50 and said, "It's wonderful to have hobbies, dear. Not everyone is built for real business." She said it the way you'd compliment a child's crayon drawing. "Proud of you for trying, sweetie." Ethan touched my hand under the table. A warning or an apology, I couldn't tell which. Maybe both. He'd been doing that a lot lately, apologizing with his eyes for the family he was born into. "You're absolutely right," I said, my voice steady as a surgeon's hand. "Not everyone is built for real business." I let that sentence hang there. Watched them relax. Watched them think I was agreeing with my own insignificance. "Some of us," I continued, "just own it." The laughter died like someone had cut the power. Preston's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Lydia's smile cracked at the edges. But they recovered fast. These people didn't get rich by showing weakness. They laughed again, nervous this time, like I'd told a joke they didn't quite understand but were too proud to ask about. Ethan squeezed my hand. Not a warning anymore. Something else. Something that felt like recognition. I'd met him 5 years ago, when Bennett Capital was just another client for my company, Riventech Analytics. Back then, I was running a startup from a converted warehouse, living on coffee and ambition, building financial systems that could predict market trends before they happened. Ethan walked into my office wearing a suit that cost more than my entire wardrobe, but when he looked at my algorithms, I saw something I didn't expect from a Bennett: genuine respect. We fell in love over spreadsheets and late-night strategy sessions. He proposed on a rooftop with no ring because he'd forgotten it in his excitement. I said yes before he could finish asking. His family smiled at our wedding. They smiled through champagne toasts and congratulations. They smiled the way people smile at puppies in pet store windows, cute but not something you'd actually take home. Lydia had pulled me aside during the reception. "You're quite impressive, dear," she'd said, adjusting a diamond bracelet that could have funded a small country. "For someone without a family name." I'd smiled then too. Because smiling was easier than explaining that names don't sign paychecks. Power does. The orchestra started playing something classical and expensive. Couples drifted toward the dance floor like they were performing in a movie about rich people being rich. Preston stood, straightened his tie, and headed toward the bar where his executive friends waited to compare stock portfolios and talk about wealth like it was a sport they'd all won. Lydia rose from the table, champagne glass in hand, and made her way to the microphone at the front of the room. The crowd quieted like trained dogs. "As a mother," she began, her voice dripping with practiced emotion, "nothing makes me prouder than seeing my son step into his father's legacy." I felt something shift in my chest. Not anger. Anger was too hot, too obvious. This was colder. Sharper. The feeling you get when you realize you're done playing a game you never agreed to play. Lydia continued, "And of course, we're so grateful to have Amelia here tonight. She's learning so much about our world." The crowd chuckled. Polite. Knowing. Ethan's jaw tightened beside me. I stood up. The room didn't notice at first. I wasn't supposed to be important enough to notice. But as I walked toward that stage, heels clicking against marble that cost more per square foot than most people's rent, conversations started dying like dominoes falling. Lydia saw me coming. Her smile faltered for just a second, a crack in expensive porcelain. I reached the stage, held out my hand for the microphone. She had no choice but to give it to me. "Thank you, Lydia," I said, my voice carrying across a ballroom full of people who'd spent the entire night treating me like expensive furniture. "You're right. I am learning about your world." I turned to face the crowd. Somewhere in the back, Preston had stopped mid-drink. "In fact," I continued, "I've learned that Bennett Capital's entire digital infrastructure, every payroll system, every performance analytics platform, every automated process that keeps this company running, is powered by Riventech systems." You could have heard a diamond drop. For those who don't know, Riventech Analytics was acquired 3 years ago by an entity called Arion Holdings. I paused. Let them wonder. I own Arion Holdings. Lydia's face went white under her professional makeup. "So yes," I said, smiling the way she'd smiled at me all night. "While you were busy planning this beautiful party, I was signing your paychecks." The silence that followed felt like the moment before thunder. Then someone started clapping. Have you ever had to show someone who underestimated you exactly who you really are? The first time I met Ethan Bennett, he was losing an argument with his laptop. I'd just walked into the conference room at Riventech, my company, my rules, my territory, and there he was. Designer suit, expensive watch, frustrated eyes staring at a screen like it had personally betrayed him. "The projection model keeps crashing," he said without looking up. No introduction. No small talk. Just straight to the problem. I liked him immediately. "That's because you're trying to run predictive analytics on historical data without adjusting for market volatility," I said, setting down my coffee. "Your algorithm's choking on outdated variables." He looked up then. Really looked at me. Not the way men usually did, not scanning, not calculating. Just seeing. "Can you fix it?" "I built the system. Of course I can fix it." That was 7 years ago. Back when I was 26 and running a startup from a converted warehouse with exposed pipes and second-hand furniture. Back when Ethan was just another client trying to escape his father's shadow. Charles Bennett Sr. was a legend in finance circles, the kind of legend that crushes everything in its wake. He built Bennett Capital from nothing, or so the story went. Truth was messier. He'd built it from other people's nothing, buying struggling companies and bleeding them dry. Ethan wanted something different. Something clean. We spent 6 months working together. Late nights fixing code, early mornings testing models, weekends lost in data that told stories about markets and money and human behavior. He asked questions that showed he actually wanted to understand, not just profit. The night he kissed me, we were alone in my office. Rain hammered against windows that didn't quite seal properly. He'd been explaining his father's latest acquisition, some family business that would be dismantled by morning, and his voice cracked on the word sorry. "Why are you apologizing to me?" I asked. "Because you'd hate what my family does." "I don't hate your family. I don't know them." "Lucky you," he said, and then his mouth was on mine, and nothing else mattered. We got married 2 years later. Small ceremony, immediate family only. His mother Lydia wore white to my wedding, an accident, she claimed, though we both knew better. His father gave a toast about expanding the family portfolio that made my skin crawl. His cousin Preston got drunk and asked if I'd signed a prenup. I had. It protected my company from ever becoming Bennett property. Ethan's family smiled through the whole thing. Polite, distant, like I was a phase he'd outgrow once he remembered who he really was. But Ethan never wavered. He defended me at family dinners when his mother made comments about my humble origins. He walked out of rooms when Preston made jokes about gold diggers. He chose me every single time. Until tonight, when choosing me meant choosing against everything his family had built. The memory dissolved as I stood on that stage, microphone in hand, watching understanding bloom across faces that had dismissed me for years. Lydia found her voice first. "That's impossible." We would have known. Would you? I asked. When was the last time you actually looked at your vendor contracts? Your system architecture? Your digital footprint? Silence. I didn't think so. Ethan stood up from our table. For one terrible second, I thought he might defend them, might try to smooth this over, might ask me to take it back. Instead, he started clapping. The sound echoed through that massive ballroom like a gunshot. Then another pair of hands joined his. Then another. Within seconds, half the room was applauding. The half that worked for the company, not the half that owned it through birthright. Preston's face had gone from pale to red. Lydia gripped her champagne glass, so hard I thought it might shatter. I handed the microphone back to her. Thank you for the lovely evening. The salmon was excellent. Then I walked off that stage with my head high and my heart hammering and the absolute certainty that I'd just declared war on people who'd been winning wars since before I was born. The question was, what would they do next? Bennett Capital Holdings occupied 3 floors of a building that looked like someone had tried to build a monument to money and succeeded. All glass and steel and the kind of modern architecture that screamed were important, without saying a word. I'd been inside exactly twice before tonight. Once for Ethan's promotion announcement, once for a charity gala where Lydia introduced me as Ethan's wife to people who immediately forgot my name. The company itself was a beast, tentacles reaching into real estate, energy, private equity, venture capital. Anything that made money, the Bennetts wanted a piece of. Charles Bennett Sr. had started with one struggling manufacturing plant and turned it into an empire through what he called strategic acquisitions and what everyone else called hostile takeovers. He died 3 years ago. Heart attack at his desk, still working at 72. They found him slumped over paperwork for a deal that would have put 200 people out of work. Lydia claimed he died doing what he loved. The 200 workers probably had different opinions. Ethan had been VP of operations then. Smart enough to run the company, too honest to do it the way his father had. The board hesitated for 3 years before finally giving him the CEO position, partly because he'd earned it, partly because keeping the Bennett name on the letterhead was good for business. Tonight was supposed to be his coronation, his moment to step out of his father's shadow and prove he could lead differently, better. Instead, it became the night his wife nuked his family's social standing from orbit. The drive home was quiet. Ethan's hands gripped the steering wheel like it might escape. His jaw worked like he was chewing words he couldn't quite spit out. You could have warned me, he finally said. Would you have let me do it?
He thought about that.
Probably not. That's why I didn't tell you. We pulled into the driveway of our house. Not a mansion like his family's estate, just a nice place in a good neighborhood with actual neighbors who borrowed sugar and complained about lawn maintenance. Ethan had wanted to buy something bigger, fancier. I'd refused. Inside, he poured himself a drink. Scotch older than our marriage. Then he laughed. Not a polite laugh. A real one. The kind that starts in your chest and explodes outward. What? I asked. Preston's face, he managed between laughs. Oh God, Preston's face when you said you own the systems. He looked like someone had told him Santa wasn't real. I couldn't help it. I started laughing too. We collapsed on the couch together, laughing until tears streamed and our sides ached. Laughing because sometimes the only response to burning down your life is to laugh at the flames. When we finally stopped, Ethan turned serious. They're going to come after you. You know that, right? Let them try. I'm serious, Amelia. My mother doesn't lose. Ever. She'll find a way to hurt you. She already tried hurting me. Every family dinner, every charity event, every time she introduced me as Ethan's wife, instead of using my name. Tonight, I just hurt back. He kissed my forehead. You're terrifying. I love it. You better. You married it. My phone started buzzing. Text messages flooding in from numbers I didn't recognize. Bennett employees, mostly. Congratulations. About time someone said it. You're a legend. Then one from a number I did recognize. Lydia. We need to talk. Tomorrow. My office. 9 a.m. I showed Ethan. He winced. You don't have to go. Yes, I do. Why? because walking away now would be retreating. And I don't retreat. That night, I barely slept. Not from fear, from planning. Lydia wanted to talk, which meant she wanted to negotiate. Find some way to save face while putting me back in my place. But there was no place for me anymore. Not in her world. I'd built my own. What would you do if your family started treating you like the enemy? The Bennett estate looked like something from a movie about people who'd forgotten what normal felt like. Iron gates, circular driveway, columns that served no purpose except reminding you that poor people don't have columns. I'd been here before. Holiday dinners where the turkey cost more than most people's weekly groceries. Christmas mornings where presents came with price tags left on, accidentally on purpose. Summer parties where the pool was heated to exactly 82 degrees because Lydia had read that was optimal. But I'd never been here alone. The butler, because of course they had a butler, led me through hallways lined with portraits of dead Bennetts. Men in suits, women in pearls, all of them looking slightly disappointed that their descendants had let me through the door. Lydia's office was at the end of the hall. She'd decorated it like a throne room. All dark wood and leather chairs and bookshelves filled with first editions she'd never read. She sat behind a desk that could have doubled as a dining table. No smile this time. No pretense of warmth.
Sit.
I sat.
Cross my legs.
Waited. That was quite a performance last night, she said. Thank you. It wasn't a compliment. I know. Her eyes narrowed. This was the Lydia I'd always suspected existed under the society polish. Cold, calculating, dangerous. You humiliated my family in front of 300 people. Your family humiliated themselves, I corrected. I just held up a mirror. She stood, walked to the window. Outside, gardeners maintained hedges shaped like something from Alice in Wonderland. Expensive whimsy. I underestimated you, she admitted. That was my mistake. I won't make it again. Is that a threat? It's a fact. She turned to face me. You've positioned yourself cleverly. Bennett Capital relies on your systems. Breaking that contract would cost us millions in transition expenses. You've made yourself untouchable. Smart business, I said. Clever. Not smart. Because you've forgotten something important. What's that? She smiled. Not friendly. Not even pretending. Business isn't just about contracts and systems. It's about relationships. Networks. The right word to the right person at the right time. And darling, I've been building those relationships since before you were born. My stomach dropped. She wasn't threatening the contract. She was threatening everything around it. One phone call, she continued, and your other clients start hearing about reliability issues. Security concerns. Creative accounting. Nothing provable, of course. Just rumors. But rumors are funny things. They spread faster than facts and stick longer than truth. You destroy my reputation to save your pride? To protect my family. There's a difference. I stood up. We faced each other across that massive desk like gunfighters at high noon. Here's what's going to happen, Lydia said. You're going to issue a statement. Clarify that your comments were taken out of context. Apologize for any confusion. Return to being Ethan's supportive wife. And we'll forget this whole unpleasant incident. And if I don't, then I'll make sure every client you have, every vendor you work with, every investor you court, hears about why Bennett Capital is considering terminating your contract, about the security vulnerabilities, the data breaches, the ethical concerns, none of which exist. Does that matter? The room felt smaller suddenly, colder. You have 24 hours, Lydia said. After that, I start making calls. I walked out without responding. Down those hallways with their judgy, dead people. Past the butler, who definitely heard everything. Out to my car where I sat in the driver's seat with shaking hands. She'd called my bluff.
Or tried to.
Because what Lydia didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that I'd been preparing for this moment since the day I married her son. I pulled out my phone. Dialed a number I'd hoped I'd never have to use. It's Amelia Rivera Bennett, I said when she answered. Remember that favor you said you owed me? I'm calling it in. What would you sacrifice to win a war you never started? 3 years ago, before I married into the Bennett family, I did something that seemed small at the time, but turned out to be the best insurance policy I ever bought. I saved Catherine Chen's company. She'd been running a cybersecurity firm, brilliant tech, terrible management, drowning in debt. One of Bennett Capital's subsidiaries was circling like a shark, ready to buy her out for pennies and strip it for parts. I'd done the analysis for Ethan, shown him how predatory the acquisition was. He'd actually listened, and found a different investor. Catherine kept her company. I made a friend. Now she was CEO of one of the fastest-growing security firms in the country, with clients ranging from Fortune 500 companies to government agencies. We met at a coffee shop 3 blocks from my house. Nothing fancy, just good coffee and better conversation. Lydia Bennett threatened you, Catherine said. Not a question. How did you know? Because that's what people like her do when they can't control you anymore. They threaten your reputation. She sipped her coffee. What did she say exactly? I told her. The rumors about security vulnerabilities. Data breaches that didn't exist. Ethical concerns pulled from thin air. Catherine smiled. Not friendly. Predatory. Here's the thing about cybersecurity, she said. Everyone's terrified of it. Nobody understands it. Which makes it the perfect weapon if you know how to use it. I'm listening. Lydia thinks she can spread rumors about your systems. Fine. Let her try. But what if those same whisper networks start hearing about security audits Bennett Capital failed? About vulnerabilities in their infrastructure that put client data at risk? Do they have vulnerabilities? Everyone has vulnerabilities. The question is whether anyone's looking for them. Catherine leaned forward. I can have my team run a comprehensive security audit on Bennett Capital systems. The ones you don't manage. We'll find problems. We always do. Nothing catastrophic. Nothing illegal. Just enough to make Lydia very, very nervous. That's fighting dirty. She started it. You're just finishing it. I thought about Ethan. About the man who defended me at family dinners and walked out of rooms when people disrespected me. The man who'd clapped first last night when everyone else was still processing. Will this hurt Ethan? Not if we're smart. We position it as due diligence. Recommend fixes. Make Bennett Capital more secure than before. Ethan looks good for addressing the issues. You look good for helping solve them. Lydia looks incompetent for letting them exist in the first place. It was perfect. Almost too perfect. What do you want in return? Catherine laughed. You already know. When this is over and you're still standing, which you will be, I want Bennett Capital as a client. Real contract. Fair terms. No family favors. Done. We shook on it. 2 women who'd built empires from nothing, refusing to let people with inherited wealth tear them down. I drove home feeling lighter. Lydia had 24 hours to wait for an apology that would never come. I had 24 hours to build a counterattack she'd never see coming. Ethan was waiting when I got back. His face told me he'd been worrying. My mother called you in, he said. She did. What did she want? An apology. A retraction. Me back in my place. What did you say? Nothing. I walked out. He closed his eyes. She's going to escalate. I know. I'm counting on it. Amelia. Trust me, I interrupted. Please. Just trust me. He studied my face. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him, because he nodded. That night, we ordered pizza and watched terrible movies and pretended our lives weren't about to become a battlefield. Tomorrow, Lydia would start making calls. Tomorrow, Catherine's team would start their audit. Tomorrow, the real war would begin. But tonight, I had my husband and my plan, and the absolute certainty that I'd built something Lydia could threaten but never destroy. Because she'd made one critical mistake. She thought power came from name and money and social networks built over generations. But real power comes from being the person everyone needs, but nobody sees coming. And I'd been invisible for years. Not anymore. Could you go to war with your own family to protect what you built? The phone call came at 2 a.m. I'd been expecting it, just not this soon. Lydia's 24 hours weren't even half over, but apparently patience wasn't her strong suit when she was losing control. Do you have any idea what you've done? Her voice cracked through the speaker. Not composed anymore. not polished.
Raw.
Ethan stirred beside me. I pressed the phone closer to my ear and walked into the hallway. I'm sorry, Lydia. It's 2 a.m. This better be important. Important? She laughed. High-pitched. Frantic. The board just received a security audit report. 17 critical vulnerabilities in our infrastructure. Data protection failures. Compliance risks. All in systems I personally oversee. I leaned against the wall, fighting to keep the satisfaction out of my voice. Catherine worked fast. That sounds serious. Have you contacted your IT department? Don't play games with me. This is you. This is revenge for yesterday. This is a professional security audit conducted by one of the best firms in the country. If they found problems, maybe you should be thanking whoever commissioned it instead of calling them at 2 in the morning. Silence. Then, what do you want? There it was. The question I'd been waiting for. I want you to stop treating me like I'm beneath you. Stop the comments at family dinners. Stop introducing me as just Ethan's wife when I have my own name and my own company. Stop acting like I should be grateful you let me breathe the same air. That's it.
No.
I also want you to understand something. I kept my voice soft. Dangerous. You threatened to destroy my reputation. To whisper poison about my business to anyone who'd listen. You forgot that I've been in this industry longer than you've pretended to care about it. My reputation was built on results, not rumors. Yours was built on a last name. You arrogant. I'm not finished. The audit Catherine Chen's team conducted? That's public record now. Sent to every board member, every major client, every regulatory body that might care about data protection failures at a billion-dollar firm. You wanted to play dirty? Congratulations. You're swimming in it. Her breathing came sharp through the phone. Ethan will never forgive you for this. Ethan's standing right behind me. Wanna ask him yourself? I turned. He was there, leaning in the doorway, arms crossed. He'd heard everything. I handed him the phone. Mom, he said quietly, Amelia didn't commission that audit. I did. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear Lydia's sharp intake of breath. You what? 3 months ago. Before the promotion. Before any of this. I wanted to know if we had vulnerabilities before they became problems. The report just came back. Bad timing, I guess. It was a lie. A beautiful, protective lie. My husband was lying to his mother to protect me, and somehow that felt more intimate than our wedding vows. I don't believe you, Lydia said, but her voice wavered. Believe what you want. The paperwork's filed with compliance. My signature. My authorization. If you want to be angry at someone for exposing problems you should have caught years ago, be angry at me. He hung up. We stood in the hallway, staring at each other. You didn't have to do that, I said. Yes, I did. She crossed a line. You crossed it back. But I'm not letting her think she can threaten my wife and get away with it. She'll never forgive you. Good. Maybe she'll finally start respecting me instead. He pulled me close. We stood there in our darkened hallway, 2 people who just declared war on a family that fought wars for sport. What happens now? I asked. Now? Now we win. The next morning, my phone exploded. Not with threats this time, with offers. 3 major clients wanted meetings. 2 investors requested calls. Catherine texted me a simple message. Check your email. The email was a contract. Bennett Capital wanted to hire Catherine's firm for a complete security overhaul. 6-figure deal. Multi-year engagement. And the project manager they requested by name? Me. I forwarded it to Ethan. He called immediately. Did you see it? I'm looking at it now. This is brilliant? Insane? Both. I was going to say perfect, he said. The board's demanding immediate action. Mom's been sidelined from the decision-making. And they specifically want you involved because your systems are the only ones that pass the audit with flying colors. So, I'm fixing the problems I helped expose. You're saving the company from problems that existed long before you arrived. There's a difference. He was right. But it still felt like walking into the lion's den wearing a meat suit. When's the first meeting? Tomorrow. 9 a.m. Conference room 3. The whole board will be there. Including your mother? Especially my mother, she insisted.
Perfect.
Just perfect. That night, I prepared like I was going to trial. Pulled every report, every analysis, every piece of documentation that proved Riventeca's systems were flawless, while Bennett Capital's legacy infrastructure was held together with duct tape and prayers. Ethan watched me work, laptop open, papers spread across our dining table like battle plans. You know you've already won, right? He said. Winning isn't enough. I need them to understand why they lost. They'll hate you for it. They already hate me. At least now they'll hate me while I'm signing their paychecks. He laughed. That real laugh I'd fallen in love with years ago. Tomorrow, I'd walk into that boardroom. Tomorrow, Lydia would have to sit across from me and listen while I explained exactly how badly she'd failed. Tomorrow, the woman they'd called a nobody would become the person keeping their empire from collapsing. But tonight, I allowed myself one moment of quiet victory. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's making them need you. Have you ever had to save the people who tried to destroy you? The boardroom at Bennett Capital looked like it was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A table so polished you could see a reflection judging you. Leather chairs that cost more than most people's monthly rent. 12 board members. 11 men in expensive suits. And Lydia, sitting at the far end like a queen whose kingdom had just been invaded. I walked in carrying nothing but a tablet and confidence.
Good morning, I said.
Simple.
Direct.
Like I belonged there. Because I did. Ethan sat 3 chairs down from his mother. He gave me a subtle nod. The only ally I needed. Ms. Rivera Bennett, said Marcus Walsh, the board chairman. Old money. Older attitudes. He pronounced my name carefully, like he'd practiced. Thank you for coming. We've reviewed the security audit and your proposed remediation plan. We have questions. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. That got a few surprised looks. They expected nervous. Apologetic. Instead, they got confident. The audit identified 17 critical vulnerabilities, Marcus continued. All in legacy systems predating your company's involvement. Can you explain why these weren't caught sooner? Because nobody was looking. I pulled up a presentation on the screen behind me. Bennett Capital's last comprehensive security audit was conducted 7 years ago. Technology changes every 7 months. You were essentially driving a car without checking if the brakes worked. That's not entirely fair, Lydia started. It's completely fair, I interrupted. The systems I manage for you? 0 vulnerabilities. The systems you manage internally? 17 critical failures. The data doesn't lie. Marcus cleared his throat. The remediation plan you've proposed is extensive and expensive. Cheaper than a data breach. Cheaper than regulatory fines. Cheaper than losing clients because you can't guarantee their information is secure. One of the younger board members, Daniel something Tech Money, leaned forward. Walk us through the timeline. How fast can you implement these fixes? This was the moment. The pivot from defense to offense. 6 months for critical fixes. 18 months for complete overhaul. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't just about patching holes. Your entire infrastructure is outdated. You're running systems designed for a company a 10th your current size. Every acquisition you make, every subsidiary you absorb, you're duct taping their technology onto a foundation that was never built to handle it. Lydia's face had gone pale. She knew where this was going. What are you suggesting? Marcus asked. Complete digital transformation. Migrate everything to a unified platform. One system, one security protocol, one point of control. It'll cost money up front, but it'll save millions in redundancy and risk mitigation. And let me guess, Lydia said, her voice sharp as broken glass. You happen to have a platform that can do all this? I do. Riventeca's enterprise system. Currently used by 12 Fortune 500 companies and 0 security breaches. But if you'd prefer to go with a competitor, I can provide recommendations. The silence was delicious. How much? Daniel asked. I named a number. Large enough to be taken seriously. Small enough to be impossible to refuse given the alternative. Marcus wrote it down. That includes implementation, training, support, everything. Full transition within 18 months. Guaranteed security, compliance. And I paused for effect. I'll personally oversee the integration. Absolutely not, Lydia said. This is a conflict of interest. She's selling us her own product. She's offering the best solution, Ethan interrupted. The audit proves her systems work. Ours don't. This isn't about family politics. It's about protecting the company. You would say that. She's your wife. And you're my mother. But that didn't stop you from letting our security infrastructure rot for 7 years. The room went dead quiet. You could have heard a stock price drop. Marcus looked between them. Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Bennett. Let's keep this professional. Of course, Ethan said smoothly. Professionally speaking, Amelia's proposal is sound. The board should vote on it. Agreed, said Daniel. Others nodded. Marcus called for a vote. One by one, hands went up. 8 in favor. 3 abstentions. Lydia didn't vote at all. Motion carries, Marcus said. Ms. Rivera Bennett, you have your contract. We'll have legal draw up the paperwork. I stood, gathered my tablet, looked directly at Lydia. Thank you for the opportunity. I promise you won't regret it. Her eyes said she already did. Outside the boardroom, my hands started shaking. Adrenaline crash. Victory hangover. Whatever you call the feeling when you've just won a battle you weren't sure you could win. Ethan found me in the hallway. You were incredible. Your mother's going to kill me in my sleep. She'll have to go through me first. He kissed my forehead. You just saved this company from itself. That's not something she can argue with, no matter how much she wants to. She voted against me. She abstained. That's basically admission of defeat. We walked to the elevator. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Lydia through the boardroom windows. She was still sitting there, alone at that massive table, staring at nothing. Part of me felt sorry for her. Part of me remembered every snide comment, every dismissive look, every time she made me feel small. That part felt nothing but satisfaction. What are you thinking? Ethan asked. That your mother just learned an expensive lesson about underestimating people. What lesson's that? The quiet ones are always more dangerous than the loud ones. The elevator descended. Outside, the city sprawled beneath us, full of people climbing, fighting, surviving in a world that rewarded power and punished weakness. I'd spent years being quiet, being underestimated, being dismissed. Not anymore. Now I was the one they'd have to answer to. What would you do with power you earned from people who never thought you'd have it? 3 weeks after the board meeting, I stood in Bennett Capital's main server room watching technicians migrate their systems to my platform. Rows of blinking lights, cables like arteries, the hum of machines doing what they did best, working without complaining. Unlike people. Preston found me there. I'd been avoiding him since the gala, but apparently my luck had run out. So this is where the magic happens, he said, trying for casual and missing by a mile. This is where data lives. The magic happens when people actually use it correctly. He winced. About the gala. Don't. I need to apologize. You really don't. Amelia, please. I was drunk and stupid, and you meant every word. I turned to face him. You've been treating me like a joke since the day I married your cousin. The alcohol just gave you permission to say it out loud. His face went red. That's not fair. Fair? You asked what I did for a living at a dinner table full of executives. You knew what I did. You just wanted everyone else to laugh at me for doing it. I'm sorry.
Why?
Because I embarrassed you? Because your department now reports to someone you thought was beneath you? Or because you're actually sorry? He couldn't answer. Didn't even try. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to go back to your office. You're going to run your division. And you're going to do it well, because if you don't, I'll see it in the performance metrics. Not because I'm vindictive, because it's literally my job now to make sure this company functions. Understood. Understood. He left without another word. I went back to watching the data migration. Numbers flowing from old systems to new. Progress measured in terabytes and seconds.
Clean.
Simple. No emotions involved. If only people worked that way. My phone buzzed. Catherine. How's the takeover going? She asked. It's not a takeover. It's a rescue operation. Potato. You basically own them now. I own their infrastructure. There's a difference. Barely. I could hear her smile through the phone. Listen, I'm calling because I just got off a very interesting phone call. Lydia Bennett tried to hire my firm to audit your company. My stomach dropped.
What?
She wanted us to find the same kinds of vulnerabilities we found in Bennett Capital. Prove you're not as perfect as you claim. I told her we don't do hit jobs disguised as audits and hung up on her. She's not giving up. Of course not. You made her look incompetent in front of her own board. She's going to keep swinging until something lands. Let her swing. I've got nothing to hide. Famous last words. Catherine paused. But seriously, watch your back. Desperate people do desperate things. After she hung up, I stood there in the server room thinking about desperation. About what it does to people who've never had to fight for anything. People like Lydia, who'd spent their whole lives believing the world owed them respect just for existing. I'd learned early that respect is earned. Every client I landed, every contract I negotiated, every late night spent building something from nothing, that's what earned respect. Not a name, not a family tree. Work. But people like Lydia would never understand that. To them, work was something other people did. Ethan texted me. Dinner tonight? Just us. No family. No business. Just food and conversation. I replied. Perfect. Pick the place. He chose a small Italian restaurant we'd gone to on our third date. No dress code, no reservations required, no waiting list of important people.
Just good food and better wine.
We sat in a corner booth, and for 2 hours we pretended we were just a normal couple having a normal dinner. We talked about movies and vacations, and whether we should get a dog. We laughed about nothing important. It felt like breathing after holding your breath for months. I miss this, Ethan said, reaching across the table for my hand. We're doing it right now. I mean this, us being just us. Not the CEO and the tech mogul. Just Ethan and Amelia. We're always just Ethan and Amelia. Everything else is window dressing. He smiled. When did you get so wise? I married a Bennett. Had to develop survival skills. Speaking of my family, his smile faded. My mother's planning something. I don't know what. But she's too quiet. That's never a good sign. Catherine already warned me. Lydia tried to hire her for a revenge audit. Of course she did. He rubbed his face. I'm sorry. I never wanted you to have to fight my family. Your family started the fight. I'm just refusing to lose it. Still, this isn't what I imagined when I married you. What did you imagine? Happy family dinners. My mother being impressed by how smart you are. Preston respecting you. Everyone getting along. I laughed.
Couldn't help it.
That's adorable. Naive, but adorable. I know. I was stupid. You were hopeful. There's a difference. I squeezed his hand. But here's the thing. I don't need your mother's approval. I don't need Preston's respect. I don't need to fit into their world. I have my own world. You're welcome in it anytime. I like your world better anyway. We finished dinner. Drove home. Made love like we were the only two people who mattered because in that moment, we were. Later, as Ethan slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling thinking about Catherine's warning. About Lydia's desperation. About the fact that winning one battle doesn't mean the war is over. But I'd been fighting my whole life. One more battle wouldn't break me. Can you protect your peace while preparing for war? The email arrived on a Tuesday morning with a subject line. Urgent. Contract review required. I almost deleted it. Spam filters usually caught this kind of thing. But something made me open it. It was from Bennett Capital's legal department. They were requesting a full review of the Riventech contract, specifically clauses related to data ownership, access rights, and intellectual property. I forwarded it to my lawyer immediately. She called back within an hour. This is a fishing expedition. They're looking for any reason to break the contract or renegotiate terms in their favor. Can they do that? Not easily. The contract you signed is airtight, but they can make things uncomfortable. Request audits, demand documentation, tie you up in legal review for months. So it's harassment. Expensive harassment.
But yes.
I hung up and called Ethan. Did you know about this? About what? I explained. His silence told me everything. I'll handle it, he finally said. Don't. This isn't your fight. Amelia, you're my wife. Everything that happens to you is my fight. And you're the CEO. If you interfere with a legal review on behalf of a vendor who happens to be your wife, that's a conflict of interest. It'll hurt both of us. He knew I was right.
Didn't mean he liked it.
So what do? We give them exactly what they ask for. Every document, every audit, every piece of paperwork proving that my company is legitimate, my work is excellent, and their legal department is wasting everyone's time. That's going to take weeks. Then it takes weeks. I've got nothing to hide. But it wasn't just weeks, it was 2 months of constant requests. Documentation for every contract. Justification for every invoice. Explanation for every line of code. They wanted source code reviews, security audits, financial statements, client references. They wanted to bury me in paperwork until I made a mistake or gave up. I did neither. Instead, I hired 3 additional staff members just to handle Bennett Capital's requests. I provided every document they asked for, and some they didn't. I was so thorough, so meticulous, so perfectly compliant that there was nothing, absolutely nothing, they could criticize. And it drove them crazy. My lawyer called after the final document was submitted. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've never seen someone respond to a legal fishing expedition with that level of cooperation. They've got nothing. No grounds for renegotiation. No basis for contract termination. Nothing. Good. Better than good. You just made their legal team look incompetent and cost Bennett Capital about $500,000 in legal fees for an investigation that found absolutely nothing wrong. I smiled. What a shame. The vindication came 3 days later. Marcus Walsh, the board chairman, sent a formal letter acknowledging that the contract review had found no issues and thanking me for my cooperation. Lydia wasn't copied on the email. That night, Ethan came home carrying champagne. We're celebrating. What's the occasion? My mother just stepped down from her position on the board. I set down my coffee.
What?
Voluntary retirement. Effective immediately. She's keeping her shares but giving up her voting rights and board seat. Why would she do that? Because Marcus gave her a choice. Step down gracefully or be removed for wasting company resources on a personal vendetta. The legal review cost us a fortune and accomplished nothing. The board wasn't happy. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. Is she okay? Ethan looked surprised. You're worried about her? She's still your mother. And this isn't how I wanted to win. How did you want to win? By being so good at my job that respect was inevitable. Not by watching her self-destruct. He pulled me close.
You did win that way.
Everything else, the legal review, the board pressure, her stepping down, that's all consequence. Natural consequence of her own actions. Still feels like kicking someone when they're down. She tried to destroy your reputation.
Twice.
Don't waste sympathy on someone who wouldn't extend it to you.
He was right.
But it didn't make me feel better. The next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. Meet me. Coffee shop on 5th and Main. 1 hour.
Please.
Lydia. I showed Ethan. Don't go, he said immediately. I have to.
Why?
Because this ends when we talk. Really talk. Not through lawyers or board meetings or late-night threats. Just 2 people having a conversation. She doesn't deserve your kindness. Maybe not. But I deserve my peace. And I won't have peace until this is finished. The coffee shop was busy. Neutral territory. Public enough to be safe. Private enough for honesty. Lydia sat in the corner, wearing jeans and a sweater. No jewelry. No makeup. I almost didn't recognize her. Thank you for coming, she said when I sat down. You said please. That's a first. She smiled.
Sad. Real.
I've been doing a lot of firsts lately. Apologizing. Admitting I was wrong. Stepping away from the company my husband built. I didn't want that. I know. That's what makes it worse. She looked at her coffee. I underestimated you. I treated you like you were nothing. And when you proved me wrong, I tried to destroy you instead of accepting that I'd made a mistake.
Why?
Because accepting it would mean accepting that I was wrong about everything. That bloodlines don't matter. That names don't matter. That the only thing that matters is what you build with your own hands. She finally met my eyes. My whole life has been about being a Bennett. Without that, I don't know who I am. It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. You're Ethan's mother, I said quietly. You're a woman who raised a good man despite being surrounded by people who valued money over kindness. You're someone who can choose to start over. Is that what you think I should do? I think you should do whatever makes you happy.
Really happy.
Not impressive. Not enviable. Happy. She cried then. Not dramatic. Just quiet tears running down a face that had spent decades being perfect. I'm sorry, she whispered. For everything. I know. We sat there drinking coffee while the world moved around us. Two women who'd been at war, finally finding something like peace. When we left, she hugged me. Brief. Awkward. But real. Take care of my son, she said. Always. Have you ever forgiven someone who didn't deserve it and found freedom in the forgiveness? 1 year later, the ballroom looked exactly the same. Same crystal chandeliers. Same expensive crowd. Same orchestra playing background music for people who measured success in stock portfolios. But everything was different. The banner behind the stage read Riventech Systems, empowering legacies, in letters big enough to be seen from every corner of the room. My company. My brand. My legacy. I stood next to Ethan wearing a red dress that cost less than most people's shoes but fit like it was made for me. Because confidence doesn't come from price tags. It comes from knowing you earned your place. Nervous? Ethan asked. Should I be? You're about to give a speech to 300 people who used to think you were nobody. Used to being the key phrase. The crowd was different this year. More diverse. Younger. Less old money. More new ideas. Bennett Capital had changed under Ethan's leadership, opened up, modernized, become the kind of company people wanted to work for instead of one they worked for because of the name. And every digital system keeping it running?
Mine.
Lydia approached. She'd aged this year, not in a bad way, just in a real way. Less polished. More human. Amelia, you look beautiful. Thank you. So do you. It wasn't a lie. She wore simple elegance now instead of expensive armor. I wanted to say, she paused. I'm proud of what you've built. Not just the company. Everything. That means a lot. I know I can't undo the past, but I hope we can build something better going forward. We already are. Preston walked past with his wife. He nodded respectfully. Didn't stop to talk, didn't need to. We'd reached an understanding over the past year, professional respect built on clear boundaries and honest work. Marcus Walsh took the stage to introduce me. It's my pleasure to welcome Amelia Rivera Bennett, founder and CEO of Riventech Systems. Over the past year, her company has transformed Bennett Capital's infrastructure, improved our security, and positioned us for continued growth. But more than that, she's reminded us all that innovation comes from unexpected places and brilliant minds don't require pedigrees. Please join me in welcoming Amelia. The applause was real this time. Not polite. Not obligatory. Earned. I walked to that microphone, the same one I'd used a year ago to drop a truth bomb on people who thought they were untouchable, and looked out at a crowd that finally saw me. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you all for being here. I paused. Let them settle. Last year, I stood on this stage and told you something you didn't know. This year, I'm here to tell you something you've learned. Curiosity rippled through the room. Technology isn't magic. Success isn't luck. Power isn't inheritance. They're all built, one decision at a time, one honest choice after another, one moment of courage when it would be easier to stay quiet. I looked at Lydia. She was crying, smiling through tears. This company hired Riventech because you needed us. But partnership is a two-way street. You've taught me that legacy isn't what you inherit, it's what you choose to build. What you choose to change. What you choose to become when nobody's forcing you to be anything. I gestured to the banner behind me. Empowering legacies isn't just a tagline. It's a promise that will help companies like yours evolve, adapt, and thrive in a world that rewards innovation over tradition. That will support leaders brave enough to choose progress over pride. The applause started before I finished. So, thank you, Bennett Capital, for taking a chance on someone without a famous name. Thank you for learning that quiet doesn't mean weak, and different doesn't mean less. And thank you for reminding me why I started this company in the first place, to prove that anyone with talent, determination, and courage can build something that matters. I raised my glass. To family, the ones we're born into and the ones we build. To legacies that empower instead of confine. And to everyone brave enough to write their own story instead of living someone else's. The room stood. Every single person. The applause thundered like breaking waves. Ethan was crying. Lydia was crying. Hell, even Marcus looked misty-eyed. I handed the microphone back and walked off that stage, knowing I'd never have to prove myself again. After the speeches, after the dinner, after the orchestra finished playing, Ethan and I stood on the balcony, overlooking the city.
That was perfect, he said.
It was honest. Sometimes that's the same thing. My mother's different now. You did that. She did that. I just gave her a reason to try. He turned me to face him. I'm proud of you. Not for the success, although that's amazing. I'm proud of the person you are. The person who fought back but never became cruel. Who won but never became ruthless. Who proved everyone wrong while staying exactly who you've always been. Who am I? Someone who signs paychecks. We laughed.
Kissed.
Held each other while the city sparkled below, like possibility made visible. A year ago, they called me nobody.
Tonight, 300 people stood for me.
Tomorrow, who knows? Maybe I'd expand Riventech. Maybe I'd take on new challenges. Maybe I'd just keep building, one decision at a time, one honest choice after another. Because that's what people like me do. We don't inherit legacies. We create them. And that's a story worth telling. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt underestimated or overlooked, if you've ever had to prove yourself to people who didn't think you mattered, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. There are more stories coming, more voices that need to be heard, more truths that deserve to be told. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us about a time you had to stand up for yourself. Tell us how you found your power. Inspire others with your story. Because quiet power changes the world, one voice at a time. Until next time, remember, the loudest people in a room are often the weakest. Real power doesn't need to shout. It simply acts.